What's up, Tar Heel fans? This is Taylor Vippolis, and you are here listening to my podcast. So first off, I just wanted to thank you all for listening or watching. If you like what we're doing here at Inside Carolina, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a show. And you could also help us out by heading over to Apple Podcasts and leaving a 5-star rating and review. It's something that takes hardly any time, but we as a staff here at Inside Carolina would appreciate it more than you can imagine. Now moving on to why you're here, we've got former Tar Heel guard and national champion Nate Britt. First off, Nate, how great of a feeling is it that when somebody introduces you, it gets prefaced with national champion?
That's an amazing feeling. Myself and my team, my staff, everyone that was involved, we put a lot of hard work and time into it, and that hard work and time paid off. So, it's almost, I don't want to say it's as good as hearing doctor. If you're a doctor getting introduced as that every time, but it kind of has that same, ring to it.
How have you been doing amid this pandemic? I know you were playing over in Cyprus, so how has this kind of affected you?
It's been crazy. It's, some for the good, some for the bad. I guess for the bad, my team was in a good position for, our League Cup. And, we had received the first round bye, and, the first team we would have played, I think we had a really good chance to win the cup, and that would have been good for everybody. Would have been good for our standing in the league. But obviously that got cut short, and we had to come home early. So that kind of sucked. I know it sucked for probably guys in college and stuff like that even more. So that was hard, and that was tough, especially with the country I was in. Cyprus is an amazing country. It's beautiful, and I wasn't ready to come home yet. But since I've been home, I've had the time to spend with my family that we haven't had probably since I was in high school. And so being able to spend that time with them and just sit together and talk together and have the time to be still has been great.
Since your playing days at UNC, you've played professionally in Scotland, Argentina, now Cyprus, like you just mentioned. What has it been like getting to see the world while also playing basketball professionally?
Yeah, it's amazing. And, I got a taste of that when I played for like the U18 Brazil, the USA team when we went to Brazil and competed out there. And that experience was an amazing one that I really enjoyed, and I knew that I would like, if I had the opportunity to play overseas, I would enjoy that a lot. And I have enjoyed it. It's been so fun and so enjoyable to indulge in different cultures and different ways of living, and just seeing the different scenery from different countries. Like Scotland is the UK, so it's gray all the time. It's always raining. It gets extremely cold in the winter. But, I was able to enjoy that. And, transitioning from there, being in Argentina and even in Cyprus, it's always sunny, the sun's up. In Cyprus, it's an island country, so you were surrounded by water. You're always pretty much on the beach and stuff like that. So, I've been able to see different dynamics and different settings, and I've loved it.
I'm going to have to come visit next year in Cyprus if from here and you're
For
talking
sure.
about that.
It's definitely worth it.
But another thing that's changed since your playing days at UNC, besides seeing the world professionally, you've also started the vegan life. What came into that decision, and has that been difficult at all as a professional athlete, balancing the vegan lifestyle with kind of like your workouts and everything?
It actually has, and it's not now, but the transition was extremely hard. And I guess what started it was What the Health, and that was, the movie flying around that everybody was watching. I think my senior year, around the time I graduated in 2017, and that pretty much scared me into being a vegan, and so, or trying it at least, because I didn't go vegan after that, but I tried it, and I wasn't able to do it at the time because I kind of cold turkeyed it and went from 100 to 0, which my body wasn't used to. So I wasn't able to sustain the energy that I needed to get through, just a simple workout. And, I had to go back to eating the ways that I was before that. And it piqued my interest, though. And so, I started to research, the effect of different kinds of foods and stuff like that, especially on athletes. And I learned different things. I learned a bunch of different ways to make that transition. I learned some of the things that or nutrients that you may be missing out on by not eating, maybe certain meats or dairy or anything that, you got to cancel out when you decide to go vegan. And, throughout that process, I don't want to say I perfected the best way to do it, but, I figured out how it would work for me. And so about a year now, close to a year, I've been, pretty much vegan and haven't had, any diet outside of that. And, it just took that time from 2017 to now to just, really figure out how to do that.
That's interesting to hear, but I wanted you to take us back to a young Nate Britt growing up in the DMV. I've seen articles where you were saying you wanted to go to UNC back in like your middle school days. When did you know that you wanted to go to UNC, and how'd you come up with that decision?
So my dad is from North Carolina. He grew up in LaGrange, North Carolina, which is, most people are familiar with Kinston, but it's pretty much the same area. Kinston was a rival high school, I think, when he was growing up. So even though I was from DC, I had family in North Carolina, and that made me, instantly grow up a Tar Heel fan. That 2005 team was probably my favorite team ever, like in basketball ever, whether it be NBA, high school, college, whatever. That was my favorite team ever, and pretty much since then, it was if I can go to the school, if I'm fortunate enough to go and play basketball there, that I would do that. And so, just throughout my career, God has blessed me with, the talent and different opportunities to put me in a position to be able to go to UNC. And luckily I was able to do that.
Can you tell us about the first time you remember meeting and speaking with Coach Williams?
Oh, the first time. I have no idea, to be honest with you. I think the most impactful time was probably when I was in his office. The first most impactful time was when I was in his office. I think it was after they had offered me a scholarship, and we had talked about that a little bit, talked about, really what he saw in me as a player and how I could benefit the program and stuff like that. Because I was ready to pretty much be done with the recruiting process. I did commit pretty early, which was the beginning of my junior season in high school, and I just wanted to be done. I don't know how the recruiting process is now with the parameters of calling kids and stuff like that, but it was hectic then, and the amount of time that was being put towards that, it was a lot of pressure, and I just wanted to be able to play. And like I said, we had that conversation, and I was, really at the point of wanting to be done with school. And so, we talked, and a combination of me having that conversation with him and my unofficial visits to the campus and stuff like that, I was sold, and I was ready to, become a Tar Heel.
I want to get to the bottom about one of the folklores around one of your visits. I'm not sure how well known it is to fans, but I know there's a famous pickup game among UNC players when you came in as a recruit going up against Kendall Marshall. Can you tell us about that game and what went down? Was it true that you were giving him buckets?
I do remember being there and playing, and I think I did give Kendall a fair share of buckets, and some of the other guys on the team as well. But I remember playing with Hook, with John Henson, and for some reason I wasn't nervous. Like, these are guys that, I was watching on TV all the time, and I think that Slam magazine had just came out when they were all on the front and the UNC jerseys wearing the cool grays and like I'm idolizing these guys. But for some reason I didn't really have that nervous energy when I was there, and I think I was on John Henson's team. We ended up, I think we might have lost one game the whole day, and I was pretty much running the show. So that was enjoyable, and it just felt good that it had been confirmed that I could kind of hold my own against these guys that I idolize and look up to every day. And it was just a fun experience. That trip was amazing.
I heard people were going up to coach and was like, "You got to make sure this kid's a target."
That's what I can't speak on that. I did hear that. I do remember, Shamar Williams being there and him really giving me that good size. All my people from the DMV, you know what that means. But I did hear that, some people were saying that. I think John did say that because we were winning the whole day. And he was like, yo, we just ran the table. I need him here at UNC. So I did hear about it. I didn't see it, but I did hear about that as well.
Your recruiting class was you, Kennedy Meeks, and Isaiah Hicks. What was the relationship you guys had like back then?
Back when we were all in high school?
Yeah, and how'd you see it kind of develop?
Yeah, it's crazy because none of us are really that close. I mean, if you know Isaiah, you know how he is, and his head is down at all times. So it was hard to, really connect with Isaiah then. And we had played together at Adidas Nations. They had a few camps, and so I think we were both Adidas kids, and we were at that camp all the time. But Isaiah played basketball, and then he was, out non-existent after that. And so, there wasn't too much there with Isaiah. We just knew each other and had crossed paths a lot. And Kennedy, when I had went to Oak Hill, one of Kennedy's closest friends, Darius Thornwell, went to Oak Hill with me. And so, we kind of had a relationship through Sendarius. And I remember Kennedy considering some other schools, and I think Georgetown was one, and some other places. And I was already committed, and I just remember, every time I saw him, like, bro, you got to come to Carolina. Like, what's the holdup? What are we waiting on? You the last piece. It's already me and Isaiah. Let's go. And so, but that was really it. And then obviously as we got to school, everything changed, and I'm still close to Kennedy and Isaiah. Kennedy is my best friend now, and so our relationship really transformed when we got there.
Those two were McDonald's All-Americans coming in. Did you feel like you were kind of slighted that you should have been on there when you kind of saw those rosters come out?
No, I didn't, because I understood it, especially with my junior season. I played extremely well when I was at Gonzaga, but going to Oak Hill and tearing my meniscus and missing pretty much that whole season, and I think the first couple of games that I started out, my stats weren't amazing or weren't jaw dropping, not as they were at Gonzaga, and so I wasn't too upset about it because I understood. I know there's been guys who have been hurt who still made the game, but being I didn't have anything to really show for my senior year, it made sense. But it didn't bother me because I knew I belonged, and especially talking to Coach Williams even after that injury and stuff like that, and having the confidence that he still had in me as a player, that was all I needed.
Having been through it all at UNC and you came out of it with a national championship, what's the best advice you could give to the incoming freshmen who are kind of coming in the same way you did, wide-eyed and not really knowing what to expect?
Man, that's tough because there's so many different aspects of adjustment when you're coming in as a freshman. Like, one, Carolina being, the best basketball program in the nation, it's not like you're not just coming to play basketball. You're coming to represent that and all that UNC is, not just as a player, but as a student athlete. And I think the best thing I could say is find a senior or find a junior that has that you feel like is where you want to be, or exemplify the things that you want to exemplify as not only on the court but off the court, and just try to get under their wing as much as possible. If you have one of those guys, they'll help navigate you through everything. And you know how Carolina is a family, it's a brotherhood, and that's in all aspects of the university. So I think that's the best advice I could give you, because just one thing wouldn't cover everything. I think that's the only thing that will cover everything that you might go through.
Coming into UNC, you started as a true freshman your first 16 games. What was that experience like when you're getting thrown into the fire right away?
It was crazy. I mean, and like you said, it was thrown into the fire right away. Like, I think one of those games was against Louisville, and they had Russ Smith when I think he was a senior at the time, and he was putting up 30s and 40s regularly. It was a lot of different things to handle, but and it was fun. I enjoyed it. Like, and it was, Coach Robinson had to really put it in perspective for me, because I do feel like I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, because I wanted to do the best that I could to represent the university and the team, the best way possible. And, he told me, enjoy this. Like, this is your dream school, and you're coming as a freshman and you're starting. So enjoy this time. Like, just take it all in and embrace it and enjoy it. And I was able to do that. And, even though we had some ups and downs, like we had some pretty bad losses during that time, but we also had some really big wins as well. So, I enjoyed it. It was fun.
I'm always curious to hear about the stories of, where you got your jersey number from or why you chose to wear it. So why did you choose to wear 0? Because that seems like a pretty unique number.
Yeah. Just growing up in the DC area, it's especially playing basketball, because that's our number one sport, and we have so much talent. And people who are so highly skilled coming out of the area, it's really a dog eats dog world for youth basketball in that DC area. And so, I had a lot of people against me, and a lot of people telling me I wouldn't, be able to achieve certain things. And so that number was always a reminder of that. It was always that nobody's with you, nobody's on your side. I mean, outside of obviously my family and close friends and stuff like that, but nobody thinks you can go to Carolina, or nobody thinks you can be all that you want to be as a basketball player. And so I kind of wore that number as a reminder, and always played with that chip on my shoulder. And I really did have grown adults. Like, I can remember a grown adult coach telling me, you'll never be on this level. You'll never play high major basketball. Everyone telling me things that I couldn't do. I remember when I was going to high school, like, getting told that even though as good as I was, and I was still, on that radar for being, a really good player in the area and in the nation, there was coaches telling me, like, you're too small, you're too skinny to play on the varsity level, and this, that, and the third. And I end up playing varsity as a freshman, end up making a game-winning shot in one of our games in the Iolani Classic, the tournament in Hawaii, the Nike tournament in Hawaii. So, I was still able to do and accomplish a lot of things that I wasn't expected to, and that's partially because I kept that reminder with me at all times and played with that chip on my shoulder.
That kind of ties into the next question that I wanted to ask you, where, one of the negatives to playing at North Carolina is you're always in the spotlight. And because of your status on the basketball team, people feel that they either, have the right to talk about you or, tweet at you negatively or message you on social media. How challenging was that at times, having to deal with all that?
It was extremely challenging. I mean, especially for a guy in my position, where you don't have the biggest role on the team, and you're not I guess you could say, one of the star players, but you do have a role on the team and you do impact the team. It's kind of that middle ground where it's just enough for you to always be to blame, or you to always be the person that a lot of people want to come at for some of our losses or misfortunes as we played through the season. So, it was extremely tough for me. And people get extremely disrespectful. And, you just got to remember that you represent the university. So you can't really react or respond in ways that, wouldn't be the best representation of everything you're representing. And so, but that was hard. Like, there's a lot of time I wanted to, to clap back at people. I'm like, bro, pull up to the school. You know where I'm at. If you're in North Carolina, we can get this game in one-on-one. And I don't play for free. So come and let me take all your bread. Like, it was tough. And like I said, growing up in that DC area, it's that dog eats dog world. And I've always been extremely competitive. And, as in the DC area, we say we don't duck no bump. And so, if people are talking to me any kind of way, then I'm gonna be ready to play you, and you're gonna have to show me what you talking about. And so that's always been how I felt about it. So it was extremely hard.
On the opposite side of that, what is it like being on the stage at North Carolina and you have kids coming up to you saying that, you're their favorite player, or along the lines of kids looking up to you?
Yeah, that was crazy, to be honest. I never would have imagined that somebody would say that to me. And I got it in high school, obviously, because I had certain accomplishments and stuff like that. And so a lot of kids want to go and play in North Carolina. And I could see it happening because of that. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like, I'm going to North Carolina. A lot of people want to go to North Carolina. I could see them saying I'm their favorite player. But being at Carolina, and like I said, not being in the biggest role, and people still saying that, it just felt great because you have so many people appreciate the things that you do for the game. And that means they appreciate the time that you put in, they appreciate the hard work that you put in. And, they aspire to reach the same accomplishments that I have or that we have. And it was a great experience. It was just amazing to hear that. And it was always more motivation, to keep working hard, to keep pushing, and to, continue to do my best job as far as being a student athlete. Because now when people are saying that, I'm not just playing for myself. I'm not just playing for the program. I'm playing for every kid or every person that's telling me, I'm their favorite player. At this point, I have a duty to be the best that I can for them as well.
One of the most interesting storylines from your 4 years at UNC is after your freshman year, you switch hands on your jump shot. I've read that Roy is the one that suggested it to you and to your dad. What went behind that decision?
I guess it was me just joking around and shooting with my right hand, and pick up and sometimes like after practice and stuff like that. And Coach Williams had known that I've always done that I grew up playing basketball like that. And in fact, I sent him, I think it was after I committed and I had already signed to go to Carolina. I had sent him a video of when I was 10 or 11 years old. And the videos of me working out, and on the video, on the left side, I'm shooting with my left hand. On the right side, I'm shooting with my right hand. And I'm doing it extremely well. And so, he's always known that I've been able to do that. And like I said, around after practices and sometimes in pickup, I would joke around and do it. And I don't know, I think one day he might have saw me doing it, and it just, he kind of pulled me to the side. We talked about it. We talked to Coach Davis about it, and then we talked to my dad about it. And we was like, I'll work on it in the summer, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. And I think after maybe a couple of weeks, I did it, and Coach had liked it. I liked it. My dad liked it. Coach Davis liked it, and we decided to kind of go forward with it. And so, all summer I was working because there was no way I was going to come out my sophomore year and have switched hands and it'd be terrible.
Mm.
So, I was in the gym. I was on the gun, getting up 500 makes a day. I put a lot of time into being able to make that transition because I hadn't used my right hand in game situations really since middle school. And so even though I could do it, it's a whole different whole difference to it of, you know, playing full speed, being able to catch and shoot and dribble off the bounce and stuff like that, and do it, you know, well, especially on the college level at the best program in the nation. So I needed to put in a lot of work.
Yeah, I can't imagine how much work that took you that summer. And along those lines, I remember one time I was talking with Marcus, and he was telling me how he was able to get off layups at such difficult angles. And he said that you and him would be working in the gym for hours for all kinds of different situations like that. What was it
Mm-hmm.
like playing and learning from a guy like Marcus?
Oh, it was great. You know, I got to be able to see, because I obviously know how much success he had at Carolina and how much he was doing for our team our freshman year. Like, he had to do so much for our team, and he was doing it, you know, on the ball extremely well. I can't even describe what he was doing because it was amazing to me to watch. Even though, like, I'm alongside him playing with him, it was crazy. And I've always been a player on a point guard, and he was scoring the ball like crazy. And I had never seen that firsthand from a point guard, and it was just crazy to see that perspective, to see someone in my position be able to score like, you know, as one of the best scorers in the nation, which you would only expect a, you know, pure shooting guard to do. But he's a point guard and he's doing both. So, you know, that was one of the things I got to learn from him, I learned how he worked, you know. I learned how he prepared himself, and you know, everyone has their own way. Everyone does things differently. And so I was able to see what he did. He was able to see what I did. And we were able to combine some of that stuff and work that way together.
I'm curious to get your take on this. When you go to college basketball, everybody wants to be the star, especially when you're a highly recruited guy going to North Carolina. But when you're at
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, sometimes you have to sacrifice parts of your game for the team. What was that like for you, finding your role and adjusting to it when you did find it?
Yeah. I think finding it was pretty tough, but because as a freshman, you come in, you don't know what to expect. And your vision of where you're going to be is in one place. And obviously, the team's vision or the vision for the team it may be in a different place. And so, you know, once that is realized, you just kind of got to accept it and understand that this is for the greater good of the team. And, you know, you go to Carolina to win a championship. And so, honestly, for me, if we weren't winning a championship or if I didn't choose this university, it would have been a lot harder because, you know, if we're not good enough to win games, what am I sacrificing my role for to not win games? And so, you know, there was a lot of different schools that I could have went to. And if I went to those schools, it would have been better for me individually. And I probably would have never won a championship. So, you know, when I chose Carolina, that's what I chose it for. I chose it for winning a championship and being able to play, you know, in the best games at the highest level, night in and night out. And when it was time to make those sacrifices or accept that role, it wasn't too hard for me because I had that to keep in mind. It was hard, and there's a lot of trials and tribulations with accepting that role and doing the best that you can. But I had to keep in mind that I'm here for a bigger purpose. I'm here for a bigger reason, and that bigger purpose and reason is for us to be the best team in the nation and to win a national championship. And you know, in doing that, I was able to be the best that I could be in that role. And that is something extremely hard to do. That I think that's a lot harder than being the best player on the team or being a player who might not have too much of an impact or doesn't play at all, because you're in that in between and you have to figure out how to be the best of being in between those two positions. And so, like I said, just keeping that in mind, I was able to push through and be the best that I could. And then I had a great coaching staff and great teammates, you know, and my staff was always reminding me my importance. And, Coach Williams even, talked to me and put me to the side a few times and talked about, like, this game, we would have lost that game without you. You really kept us in the game, or, we didn't have anything going, and you made, 6 plays in a row for us that were, if you weren't here and we didn't have you on the team to be able to do that, we would have lost this game. And that happened a lot of times, and I always had, my staff and my teammates reminded me of that if I got to a low point and didn't feel like I was significant, part of the team as well. So that helped too.
And winning a national championship helps, I'm pretty sure,
Of
right?
course. Of course.
All right, Nate, I wanted to take a quick break here so I can remind everyone about Johnny T-Shirt. As a locally owned business to Chapel Hill, they need your support more now than ever. They're always having sales over there, so you can be sure you're getting the best price on the best Carolina gear. We're all at home right now watching the Last Dance documentary, so why not get a Carolina MJ jersey? Because after all, that's where Mike became Michael. Johnny T-Shirt has got you covered with whatever you could want when it comes to Carolina apparel, and their customer service can't be beat. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. All right, Nate, you know it's something that we have to unfortunately talk about, the 2016 National Championship game where your adopted brother, Chris Jenkins, hits the game winner. What was that dynamic like after the game where your brother's greatest success came at the hands of your team's shortcomings?
It sucked a lot, and not only because we lost, but because I'm super competitive, and Chris and I have always been competitive, and he has that one up on me forever. And so, I can say I went to 2 national championships. You only went to 1, but he can always say I beat you. I can never say I beat him, and that's not. I can't even say we beat him in a normal game. Like, the only time we ever played each other, he won. And like I said, we're super competitive. I remember, we would compete in high school. We're on the same team, but we're trying to score more than each other. So we had a crazy competitive relationship. So that part of it really sucked. It still sucks to this day, but it is what it is. But at the same time, I was happy for him. If Villanova was going to win any kind of way, as bad as it hurts all of my Tar Heel family to say this, I'm glad that they won by him winning the shot. I mean, him making the shot and winning the game in that way, because, it was a success for him. And anything that's a success for him is a success for, our entire family. If Ryan Archidiakono made the shot, it would have been way worse. So I'm glad that it was him.
Do you ever talk about what if he missed the shot and you guys go to overtime? Because I don't think there's any doubt UNC wins that.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. We talked about it that night, and we talk about it all the time. And he knows. He said it himself. I didn't even have to say it the first time we talked about that. If that game went to overtime, we were going to win the game. We had much momentum coming back from that deficit going into the last, minute and a half of the game, where we knew if we went to overtime, that momentum was going to carry us to a win. And so, that's part of the reason why he felt like he needed to make that shot. He did just that.
And is it true that Chris would come with you to Chapel Hill that summer? And if that's true, what was it like having him around where he had just broken everybody's heart?
He did come around Chapel Hill, and it was because at the end of the day, Chris is my brother, and I know it hurt everybody, but it's a competitive game, and at the end of the day, you have to be able to compete with people, and no matter the outcome, not let it destroy any bonds or relationships that you have. And Chris has had a relationship with the entire Carolina team because he's my brother. It's not the first time he's been on campus at Carolina and been around the guys. So, I just had to make sure it was fine with the team and make sure it was fine with, Coach Williams and our staff. So I definitely asked Coach Williams. I asked my teammates. And for the most part, all of my teammates were okay with it. Coach Williams was definitely okay with it. And, when I brought him by there, the first thing I did was took him to Coach Williams' office. I feel like that was the most respectful thing to do. And the best way to go about it. And then we just did what we did and hanging out on campus and stuff like that. Luckily, I think it was in the summertime and not too many people noticed him. Some people did notice him and had a lot to say about it, but we just kind of kept it moving. So, but it was still cool. It didn't at that point. It didn't bother me anymore. Like you got to know that I've been with Chris for a whole summer now, and
You had heard everything
it's
that he could say.
right, exactly. I heard everything from everybody that's around the DC area that they could say as well. So it's nothing for me at that point.
Speaking of that summer, I talked to Justin Jackson, and he was saying how hard everyone worked that summer in particular with the goal in mind of the redemption tour. What do you remember from that off season heading into your senior season the most?
I think the thing I remember the most is it was either the first day of conditioning or the first day of weights. We all just kind of declared that everything we do is for, this next championship game coming up. And so we established that, and it allowed us to have a different mindset with everything that we were doing because, especially as early as the summertime before the season even starts, you're lifting, but you're lifting just to lift. Like, yeah, I'm trying to get stronger and it's that and the third, but you're just lifting to lift. Or you may be doing the conditioning test, you're doing the conditioning test just to pass the test. And we had, adopted a different mindset of every single rep of every single thing, every single sprint was to win the national championship game. So we're doing it with a different intensity and a different purpose. And I think that set us up for the practices and how we approached every practice and how we executed in every practice, and then to the games and then to the tournament when it came down to that time, because there was a few games that we could have dropped, and we I think that intensity and that mindset that we adopted from when it all started pushed us through and got us over the hump against those teams that we could have lost to.
During your senior season, you went to Hawaii. Your sophomore season, you went to the Bahamas. Obviously, when you go to trips like that, winning is the most important goal. But can you just explain to fans how fun those trips are for just the non-basketball reasons?
Oh my gosh, those trips are amazing. And that's one of the things you really don't take for granted with being a player at one of these big programs like Carolina's, that you get the opportunity to see stuff like that and experience things like that. Like Nassau, the water is bath water. It's the most perfect water. You can see through the water. I mean, being on the beach and just hanging out there, it was a blast. And I had never been to a beach like that or experienced anything like that. We had, they have the slides and the all the different things that you could be doing out there. That's so much fun that, we got some time to be able to experience, because we are out there to win and to play. So we don't get the whole time to experience that stuff, but, just having a day or two to be able to do that was extremely fun. Like it's going to Nassau, Bahamas and Maui are trips that I feel like are a must. They are bucket list, vacation places that you have to go to. And the fact that, we were just a part of something enabled us to be able to go and then experience those things was, it's something I've always been thankful for.
Another thing I'd love to get your perspective on is for those of us who we only get to experience it on the TV or in the stands, but what is it like playing in the Duke UNC game?
Oh my, it's amazing. There's nothing better than that. And, I think some people might argue, if they've played in some of my teammates or some of the alumni might argue, playing in the championship game and that Duke rivalry game, I don't think playing in a championship game and winning a championship, that just the game in itself is better than beating Duke at Duke. Like, beating Duke at Duke is amazing just because the atmosphere is crazy. Everyone thinks it's a big gym. It's a small gym. And the fans are crazy, and it's so loud and so much energy in there. And being able to overcome not just the battle of winning the game, but the battle of being able to play through that energy that's against you the entire game. It's one of the greatest feelings ever.
On Twitter, I saw that you mentioned that the players and the students that they hate NC State more than Duke. Why is that?
NC State just doesn't get any respect from us. Like, and I'm sorry if I'm setting anybody up here, but to be honest, NC State's like the little brother. You know, the big brother never loses to the little brother. And obviously, there's some games that we lost to NC State, but you know, NC State is just they want to be a rivalry. It's not a rivalry. The rivalry is with Duke. Everyone knows that. But you know, they're like I said, it's the little brother who wants to be in everything. You know how mom's like, take your little brother to wherever with your friends, and you know, not our friend is Duke, but we may be going to compete against Duke, and NC State wants to come along and be a part of it. That's just kind of how it is. They're more so annoying than anything. And like I said, Duke is more respectable.
That's a good word.
In that case, Duke shows a lot more class than NC State does. And it's not always necessary the NC State players, but it's the fans. Like, we played at NC State, somebody threw a can of dip at me. There's a can of dip rolling around on the court. Like, that would never happen at Duke. And they have such a much crazier atmosphere where the fans are way more hype and, you know, a lot more is going on. But, you know, that's not a classy thing to do. You know, at the end of the day, why are you? And then, you know, I've heard fans cussing out, you know, people on our staff or wives and stuff like that. It's not everything that they do is not classy. And for the most part, Carolina and Duke are, you know, we hold ourselves with the utmost class and the utmost respect for everyone. So.
All right, so your senior year, you lose to Duke in the first game, and then you come back on senior night and you beat Duke. I think the score was like 90-83, I remember seeing. How emotional was your senior night knowing you're going up against Duke and it's the last time you'd ever play in the Dean Dome?
Yeah, it's weird because it wasn't too emotional for me, but it was a great feeling. First game, Duke was at home. My first game as a freshman, and we beat Duke at home. And I can remember being a part of that celebration where everyone's out on Franklin Street, and you know, people at the frat houses are going crazy. And just to be able to experience that as a freshman, and then going and playing senior year at home against Duke and winning that way, you know, everything just kind of came full circle. And it was, you know, I was able to be in that moment and just to enjoy that, you know, I came in the right way, I'm going out the right way. And, you know, the icing on the cake was just, you know, us winning that championship that year as well. So it was, like I said, everything came full circle for me, and it was no better way to finish out. And, you know, everyone is not that fortunate.
Switching to the 2017 tournament, everyone loves the tournaments because of how intense they are, but, you know, you could blink and just like that, your season's over. What is that feeling like where any game could potentially be your last? Is that something that's kind of going through the back of your head?
Yes. There were definitely a few games that I was going through the back of my head. But being through that so many times, you know, everyone's not as fortunate to go to the tournament every year. You know, if they're at school for 4 years, and I have been, and my teams were, so you kind of get used to it, and you get used to being in the moment and not really worrying about this could be the last game. And you learn how to use that, you know, if that thought comes up or if that feeling comes up, to your advantage. Because you could very easily get caught up in that kind of mindset and that kind of thinking and freeze up in a game. And I've even been in an experience where, you know, I get so anxious and so nervous that I almost like I can't move on the court. or like I can't even dribble the ball right in front of me. And so, we had that. I've had that experience for 3 years going into that last year playing in the tournament. So against Kentucky, when that thought came up, I'm like, all right, we'll be fine. And against any other team, Oregon or Gonzaga, if that thought comes up, like I said, you have that experience, so you use it to your advantage of, okay, I'm diving on every single ball. Jumping as hard as I can for every single rebound, because a lot of the game comes down to, the want to. If you have more want to than the other team, and throughout that tournament, I think you saw that we had that a lot, and we won a lot of games that we could have easily lost.
What do you remember the most from the national championship in 2017, whether it could be something from the pregame, during the actual game, or maybe in the immediate postgame?
What do I remember the most? That's tough. I would say there's three things that I remember the most. I can't just leave it at one. One of them is us warming up, and I think it's either pregame shoot around or us warming up before the game. No, it's pregame shoot around, the day of the championship game. Theo is like joking around, and he's throwing the ball through Coach Williams' legs. We are going through our shoot around, and it was just a representation of how we were so focused, but we were always loose. Like our staff always called it, you guys too tight. You need to be loose. You need to play loose. And we were a fun team, and we were always a fun team. We were always better when we played fun, and we kind of chill and not put too much on the situation. And that one thing that he did was just a representation of that. And the fact that we're here on championship day at shoot around and we're still able to have fun with this and not put too much pressure on ourselves, it transferred right over into the game. And I think that's one of the things that I remember. I remember as soon as the game ended against Gonzaga, everyone running on the court and just, kind of embracing each other, and guys crying. Literally the picture that you have right behind you on the wall with everyone hugging each other and guys crying. And that moment, and then the last moment is us being up there on that stage and taking the pictures, and Theo and I dancing, and just that whole experience with that, because we had finally overcome it. It was, the weight was lifted off our shoulders, and it was like we can finally relax and chill now, because when we were in the Final Four, we were not relaxed at all. Like, we had that list, but we were still on a mission. And it wasn't really like we were too much being in the moment of having fun, as far as everything that comes with being in the Final Four, because it's a whole different experience. And I even remember, because Rob saying, yo, you guys went to back-to-back Final Fours. You got to enjoy this. Like, people never go to a Final Four. And you guys have been a back-to-back, and we're like, yeah, but we got to win this year, so we're still locked in. And, that was the point, being on that when we didn't have to be locked in anymore.
I've heard about the 2016 team after losing the national championship, like the sad stories and like trying to go to Whataburger when it was closed. But what was the night like in 2017 when you guys win the championship and, you're partying with people like Johnny Manziel, OBJ, Trey Songz, Devin Booker? What was that night like?
It was amazing, just because, those guys wanted to be in our presence. And those were people that obviously we were looking up to, who were, on different levels where we wanted to be in their careers. So, I mean, just OBJ alone, the fact that he was at the game, the fact that he was, really behind us and wanting us to win this game, and the fact that he wanted us to, hang out with him or whatever, it was so cool. Because, like you said, that 2016 year coming back to campus, it was so dead. Like, it literally felt like everyone had just lost their best friend. And it hurt us because as we were going to the next round in the tournament that year of 2016, you could feel how electric campus was. Like, that energy was a different kind of energy because everyone was watching, everyone was tuned in. And so we bring back, and then energy is more. It's more energy. It's more electric. And then the same thing as we go to the next round. Then after the championship, we come back, and it went from, like 100-0 to no energy, no electricity. And I know for me personally, it hurt a lot because I felt like we had let our fellow students down, our faculty down. I felt like we let everyone down that was a part of the university. So that next year, being able to go experience that with them, and then being able to come back to campus and then welcome us with, open arms and warm hearts and that electric feeling to still be at that same level, if not more. If it was, I loved it. Like, it felt so much better than this year.
Going along those lines, when you win a national championship and even to a lesser extent when you win at Cameron, what's it like knowing that waiting for you in Chapel Hill is 20,000 people ready to party with you?
Oh, that is great because when you're in the game and you're in the moment, you don't really realize the atmosphere around what's going on, and not just in the gym, but from the people watching from home to everyone on campus. You don't really, you're so locked in to just the court and the court alone that you don't really think about that. And so afterwards, when you're like, wow, all of these people were paying attention to what we were doing, and they were a part of this experience. And then it's that embrace, and you get to, enjoy that feeling of, we didn't just win, like us players and us staff, but everyone won. Every student, every faculty member, every alumni, everyone won that. And so it kind of represents that, and it represents, that you just did something. Like, when you won you won that game not just for the team or not just for yourself, but for everyone that's a part of the program.
To close the podcast, last question for you. What is the funniest Theo Pinson story that you could tell without anybody getting in trouble? I've heard some bits and pieces of good ones. I've heard when he got sick at Chipotle, and I also heard something with the mile run. Somebody told me to ask him about that.
I don't remember the one with the mile run. I do remember Chipotle. I was there for that. That was hilarious. I still think the funniest one to me that I can remember off the top of my head, because the Theo Pinson stories are, there's a million stories with him, but the funniest one to me was the conference when, he wasn't a part of the conference and he just walked in and was pretty much like, oh, y'all need me, or whatever he did. That was the funniest one by far. And obviously I didn't see it till after, but that was the funniest thing I think he's ever done. And he's always full of jokes and full of life. Like, Theo's the life of the party at all times. But that was the funniest thing. And so I guess I'm sorry that I can't give everyone something that they weren't a part of or didn't get to experience or see for themselves. But that was still the funniest thing he did to me.
Nate, thank you so much for joining me here today. I had fun catching up with you. We've got to get you over to a PVI practice if we can when things clear up before you head back overseas.
For sure. I appreciate you having me, and we'll definitely do that. We'll stay in touch.